Can't hear anything. Can't hear anything.
That's who's coming down from my dear friend's constituency is in Michael, North Central. Yeah. I told her she's coming back home. She's registered with us. We're happy to have her and you go. You know, when you come to St Lucy, you have to work hard. And those of you who don't know Sandra, you can stand. I also see David, Mr. Boyd. We are happy to have you. Quick a bit about the exploits, and we will get to work and understand where we are in our whole campaign effort.
Yeah. So everybody tomorrow.
Vision, it is not because it's just an ambition, but we will sure get to that eventually. Without any further ado, then I want to introduce to you. We have adjusted our normal agenda. We will not do our normal minutes and things like that. We will take minutes of this meeting and we report at the next one. But we will obviate that necessity. And I will just give you a brief introduction of our guest speaker today. Now, I probably should stand up and talk a little bit about this speaker, but I don't think she needs any introduction to us. But for a matter of record, I would say that she is a St Lucy person from her very early youth. She frequented the north of Barbados, North Cumberland, to be exact, where her grandparents lived. And I knew her coming to church with us at Checker Hall. Now, she is schooled in Barbados, coming from a strong educational background. Both her parents were teachers. One of them was a primary school teacher at what we used to call the Miss Campbell's School, Children's School in St Lucy. That's where I knew her. Yes, she went to church at my church. But Verla's secondary education was at the shared alma mater, although in my time it was a boys' school, so she went to the boys' school. But she went this distinction since she became a Barbados exhibitioner. Went on to university in England, University of St Patrick, where she pursued training in law and politics, a combination that you don't usually find in most universities. We will skip all the details. We will just say that she's a mother of two. She's a Christian SDA, her beliefs. Christian, I tell you first. SDA, I tell you afterward. She's a lawyer by profession. Some people will say that she's a politician. A lot of us are politicians, so never even get the opportunity to serve. She She is a very busy individual. Long before she even went into this political thing, she was known as the person, as a lawyer on a number of Barbadian programs. A number of people know her and they say they used to listen to her on morning when she was given free advice and finding solutions. Now she has been asked in August 2018 to hold up her hand to lead this party, which found itself in a position that it never found itself before. And we in the North have supported her. When the new plans came out for selecting candidates, we supported the procedures, and then we invited everybody who we felt that was interested. We tell them to send us a letter. What's wrong with it? We are in changing times. The pandemic has forced change on the entire world, and we should not look for anything to come back to what we used to know as normal. So there will be change. Change will be constant. As a result of it, she put in an application which we were happy to receive, and she became our candidate for representation. We basically sent that to both councils, and it was unanimously accepted. And tonight, it is my privilege and my delight to introduce to you the Perla people, the next candidate who will represent this constituency branch, the DLP, and who eventually will win this constituency again. So doing, she will become the first woman to represent the only female art in Marseille. Are looking forward to your support. We will support her to the help, and we believe that we will have an unequivocal success in the next campaign, whenever it is whenever the Prime Minister to call it. So that is the message we send to her. That I will be sent out. Before I do, I want to invite this brother to
Good evening, everyone. I know the microphone is necessary for the Zoom, but I have never been told that I had a small voice. I have a small body, but I have always been able to project my voice. That is, of course, something very different from shouting, which I try my best not to do. Of course, as a mother, you would know I have to shout sometime or the other, even if only in that context. Today is for me a very exciting and humbling day. I started my political career in St. Lucy. The very first opportunity that I received to speak on a national platform, I received a call and I was so nervous about it. I first told him I would think about it, and then I said yes. And I told nobody in my family. Now, those of you who know the Grace is with me, every Sunday, without fail until COVID, at our family house in Northumberland, St. Lucy. And all they knew is that I had disappeared into a room. And everybody was going to the political meeting, but nobody in the house knew that I was supposed to speak until I got on the platform. And that was the start of my political career. But that was not the start of my preparation for representation. I am blessed to be part of not one, but two households that understood that purpose in life is service to people. So I had on my mother's side what you would know more, and that is my Uncle Philip, who can't be here tonight and he's not pleased about it. But you would know him as Sir Philip Graves and the service that he gave to St. Philip North and to this country in various capacities all the way up to Deputy Prime Minister. And he learned at home. He learned that from watching his parents, the same grandparents that raised me, helping out others in the neighborhood, recognizing that they had more than others. But on my father's side, I had a similar example, but from the opposite position. They had nothing and still found something to share with people. So when those two families came together, all I saw was service. I saw my father teaching children to play the piano and the organ, whether or not he got paid. I saw my mother teaching adults how to read and write, and she wanted no payment. That is the example that I saw, and that I am determined to emulate. And I set about it from early. This is not a boast. This is you getting to know me. So if you check back in the archives of the Nation newspaper, you will see that at 11 plus stage, I raised my hand. If you check back in the archives of the same Nation newspaper, you will see that after CXC, I declared my hand. And then I chose my subjects with care, because the intention always was to come back to Barbados, the country that paid for me to go in the first place, and give back. So what I studied had to lead to that point, that my life of service would be meaningful to my country. And it has never been about the money. It has never been about the money. When Villeneuve told you that I was giving free advice, a lot of people think that means that I was giving the advice and those watching got it for free. I wanted no money from CBC for it either, because the whole country paid for me to get to where I am, and it was not too much to give an hour, hour and a half of my time every other week in one case and every other month in the other to educate my people. That is my role and my calling. And then there's some who will ask, why St. Lucy? But they would be the ones who, like David, didn't grow up with me in St. Lucy and wouldn't know about the amount of time that I spent in St. Lucy. St. Lucy is the first place that I lived. And I don't kid when I say I am grandparent raised. We grew up in my grandparents' house. And then when we started school and moved home with our parents, every single vacation was spent in Northumberland, unless we were out of the country. The affinity that I have for St. Lucy is so large that I come every Sunday bar COVID to be back down here, and also so that my children can experience the same freedoms that I had in St. Lucy. Because we had one chore: carry out the sheep and bring them back in. All y'all St. Lucy people know that life. All of you know that life. And perhaps we should have given some sheep to our children too. y'all know what mash is? Good. So you know the iron line, okay? Had to feed the sheep, stake them out, and bring them back. You know, there's no animal quite like a sheep to do exactly what it feels like and nothing else. It is a lesson in patience too early in the morning. But it was the only chore that we had besides, that wasn't even a chore, scratch grain for the chickens. So that took exactly 10 seconds. And the rest of the day was spent exploring St. Lucy. And that is how my love for this parish developed and grew to the point where I knew that given the opportunity, it is here that I wanted to make my mark. But politics being what it is, you don't always get what you want when you want it. And I have never understood disappointment to be a full stop. That is the time that shows your mettle. So I couldn't get St. Lucy because Comrade Dennis Kelman was representing you and standing up on your behalf. And he had my full support. Not many of you know, but I see one of my comrades sitting there who will know perfectly well that I went in the runnings in the lead up to the 2008 election for the St. Michael West Central seat. And Comrade James Paul beat me in the nomination. And in the 2008 campaign, I spoke on James Paul's platform. Because there is always a larger picture than the individual. Correct. And the process of nation building has many different ways that you can participate, and all of them are valid. And then given the opportunity, I went to Christchurch West. Never in the history, pre or post-independence, since the creation of that constituency, has the DLP held that seat. But that did not deter me. I put my all into it. My back is not broad physically, but I put my all into it. And I am pleased to hold the distinction of having been the only person so far on behalf of the Democratic Labour Party to win boxes in Christchurch West, because up until that point, it had not happened. And the reason I say so far is because I have every confidence that who we bring in Christchurch West will do well in this But one thing you can't predict is the future and timing. Timing was not right for anybody in 2018. Timing was worst of all for the Democratic Labour Party. And we found ourselves in difficult times. And I will not ever lie and tell you I wanted the job, because there are too many who would say, Verla, just they put the phone down in my ear and that is all. I said no, I did not want it. But having taken it, rest assured that I will do my best at it. And even that did not open up the opportunity for me in St. Lucy. Because in putting the bylaws that Comrade Villeneuve spoke about in place, it meant that I too, as the president of the party, had to submit myself to scrutiny and submit myself to investigation. And Comrade Margot, there were 3 of us, I think, who were interviewed in relation to candidacy in St. Lucy. But it must never be said that corners are cut. For one thing, that is not the St. Lucy way.
True.
And secondly, it is not mine. And so, having come to St. Lucy and being ratified in March of last year, I see a lot of faces in here that I have met as I go from house to house. COVID intervened, but we found ways outside of COVID. Because St. Lucy, dear to my heart, needs me. And I say that without fear or favor. And I need St. Lucy as well. And the reason I make these bold statements is because I have for a long time been driving across the same roads that you have, breaking my shocks like you have. And that's for the roads that were not overgrown. Like you, for me though, on a Sunday, there is the wonderment of what color the water will be if perchance it comes out of the tap. And sometimes it is not just the color, but the taste. It tastes like it pipes straight from the sea. I am bold enough to give kudos to the last administration for the foresight of the desalination plant at Hope. I want the present administration, though, to speak up as to why its maintenance was not kept, because that is a significant feature in the provision of water to this parish. But that is just a start. Barbados has to have a plan for addressing what the scientists like to call non-revenue water, but what we all know is wastage. We were campaigning in Spring Hall Tenantry and found a tap that was so mossy. We didn't need the residents to tell us that it had been leaking for 6 months. The colored moss were of the rainbow on the standpipe. It had been leaking that long. They had a rock next to the standpipe that was the stopcock. You had to hit it to turn it on and hit it to turn it off. And I had never heard such madness in my life. 6 months, you know. And I, as the young people would say, put them on blast. Video went up, but next morning, BWA was at that standpoint fixing it. We went down Hope Road and nearly got bathed with the water spewing out of a pipe. Well, before we were finished canvassing that evening, we haven't stopped and put that up as well. They were there and it was fixed. If that is what it takes to get work done for the people of St. Lucy, I'm going to do it. And they knew that I was going to talk about the Spring Garden Road that we haven't even seen in 3 years because it was that overgrown. And we turned up Thursday to see the bush cut back. Didn't get a chance to post that. But they know we don't in that area, so things will get done. Hopefully they keep running ahead of me and I will keep walking real fast so that St. Lucy gets the service it deserves. And I pledge that I will continue. Those are things that hurt us. The water, the roads, the lack of a proper bus service, the way that St. Lucy people have to spend more in bus fare than anybody else because you have to take more than one bus. There's no transfer service. There's, matter of fact, some parts of the day, there's no service. I make bold to say that. St. Lucy people, those things hurt you. But the thing for me that St. Lucy needs the most is opportunity. There needs to be something in St. Lucy for St. Lucy. At present, apart from our village shops, you have to travel to Mile Quarter if you have a car, to Spikestone. Moontown has some service, but there needs to be a hub for entrepreneurial development in St. Lucy. There needs to be somewhere that we can have. And I am thinking of the models that already exist. You don't have to recreate the wheel. We already know it is round and it rolls and it works. So what you have done in other areas needs to be brought to bear in St. Lucy. And pick a spot. In my head, I'm thinking Nestfield, I'm thinking Bourbon. We already have the post office in Bentham's, but not enough space for development. I'm thinking Barrows, I'm thinking Checker Hall. There are areas that are accessible to St. Lucy people that are amenable for that type of development. And that, by simply putting it in place, will bring the St. Lucy people to socialize and congregate and meet and assist one another. And that is what we're looking for. We don't need to have grandiose plans when we know that we don't have grandiose pockets. It doesn't make sense. It is wonderful to have those dreams, but there's a reason we call them pipe dreams. What we need are attainable goals. And then when we get that one step, we can take another step forward. And it is those attainable goals that I am looking to progress on behalf of the people of St. Lucy. And that is just a nugget, because we need to have development of that type alongside the water and the roads and things of that nature. St. Lucy must have economic activity. But St. Lucy has larger issues than that as well. St. Lucy needs housing. St. Lucy people like St. Lucy. Let's just be very clear on that. I couldn't get my husband to visit St. Lucy because he was from Christchurch and we just don't figure this trip. We don't feel the trip at all. We do it very easily. But others think they're going overseas when they come here. We know better. We know much better. Things get better the further north you come. But housing solutions, when you really think about it, there has been government housing development in pretty much every constituency except It was started in Pickering. We need to get options so that our people can be at themselves. And that will require some cooperation, because the other thing that we know is that St. Lucie people keep their land. You're lucky if you see a piece of land in St. Lucie for sale. There have been private developments. There have been private developments, but government developments to assist our people is what is in my mind. We need to have the growth of the rest of Barbados mirrored in St. Lucie. And it is not really that hard to do. It is about government having the will to do it, because we are in a climate now where government does have to drive revenue generation in terms of construction. So what a perfect moment for development in St. Lucie. This is the ideal time for developing St. Lucie, when government has to look for projects in order to generate work for people in a time when the climate does not allow others to do it. And so we have to push and press and agitate for these things. And that is my role on behalf of the people of St. Lucie. To do that stirring of the pot. And my number is freely given. I've had the same number since I came back to, certainly as long as Digicel has been in Barbados, I've had the same number. And there is no intention to change it. I haven't changed it yet through other campaigns. It won't get changed. It is freely given out. It is always on, but on vibrate. Because being accessible is a critical element of representation. We cannot walk and ask people for their vote, and then after getting the vote, we disappear. Leave the place. Change the number. Vex if somebody find you. Your constituency aides can't help because they don't know where they are either. That is not representation. That is using somebody for your own personal means. Right. I can tell you, mine has never changed. Clients have it, constituents have it, friends and family, everybody. There is no second number either for me to decide that I answering some other phone. It's the only one. 262-7289. And yes, I have it up on Facebook too. So if you don't remember it this evening, check the Facebook page. You will see my telephone number. It is as public as that.
Good afternoon.
I don't know how it is. I got up in here and spoke for the last half hour and have not yet recognized the presence of Comrade Lescar Carrington, all 102 years of age. Sharp as a tack, committed, and he's not lying. If you check my phone, you will see that at least once a week, Comrade Carrington is calling me, Verla, X is happening. Verla, there's this funeral, make sure you get to it. Verla, call this person, they need some help. And I don't know who it is, he knows, but he knows. I ain't making sure that I know. and I have to follow through because he called me back. Matter of fact, tonight he called me and told me, don't forget to pass for me. And when I called, I heard, oh, but he left already. So I thought it was plan B. He was getting here regardless and making sure that he had more than one plan to get here. Thank you very much, Councilman. And of course, because you are in St. Lucy, you are in Barbados, and you are affected by what is going on in the country. So I couldn't stand here this evening and not have something to say about what Senator Monique Tate called the state of Wonderland. Sometimes the expressions from the street capture all that you wish to know. And there could be no better expression than the state of Wonderland. How can you, having promised so much, deliver so little? I hate forgetting to look at my notes. How can you, when given a significant mandate from the people of Barbados, let them down so dismally? And I say that without fear of contradiction again, because you live the same experience that I live. Whether you own a car or not, you are hurting. Bus fare jumped by 75% in 1 week. $3.50 a trip. And you have to get to work and get your children to school. And I know that there are some who, living a different kind of life, will say, oh, but the government provided buses for them to get to school. But they don't know that if the people from Crab Hill don't get on the ZR, they can't get to Spikestown in a hurry. So they have to give the children the bus fare. And not only help the ones that are going to Alexandra and CP and Darrell Jordan. If they're going to Ali School, that's another set they got to pay. So when, as a civil servant, you got 5% increase, and I am not going to have any conversation over how that fiddle came about, because I don't know. I only watch how it dropped, like mercury, till it reached that point. Matter of fact, it dropped lower than that, so like it looked like a gift from the floor of the house at the 5%.
Yeah.
When you're given that, and then when just last month, minimum wage is increased incrementally because there were only a few categories of worker who were not already somewhere in the 350 region. The shop workers needed to be brought up. The gas station workers needed to be brought up. Nobody really quite understood what was going on with the security guards. That seemed still to be a bit of a quagmire. But when you get that buried in this hand here, so, and this one here busy taking it back out, what have you gained? And this is your lived experience. The whole country marched against NSRL. But while NSRL was in, you were told that that was the reason for prices being so high. Never mind, they knew, even if you didn't, that there was a basket of goods protected from the NSRL. And unless you had champagne and caviar taste, and you had to eat not tin tuna, but the nicely sliced tuna, you were not touched by NSRL. That was not sold to you. So we have money given with one hand and snatched back with the next. I am constantly being told that I shouldn't do this, but I have to recognize my family in the house. Uncle Henderson, my brother Francis, because I will tell anybody that I could not do what I do if I did not have family support. And while they may not be here this evening, that is extended to my in-laws that I can call on at any time. Not necessary anymore, my children are big, 19 and 15. So I don't need that support in the same way, but I could call on them. I had an uncle, God rest his soul, who left Canada every election and came home and took over the management of my children so that I could get along with what I wanted to do on behalf of my country. And his memory will always be a great one for me, Uncle Franklin. But how do you take off the NSRL, add on garbage and sewage levy? So your water bill, and here's the magic in that money. If your money is tight, you can't decide that you can pay the water part and let the sewage part go. It is a water bill, but the garbage and sewage part comes up first. So you are getting with one hand and then you take back with the other one. Those who are on the bus, as I said before, had to pay the 75% increase. But Lord have mercy, if you own a car, it can't done every single month. Price goes up. And never in consideration that in the present climate, for a lot of households, there's no such thing as disposable income. They are deciding who to send to school. And I went to a house, I will never out anybody's business. But I went to a house where there were 3 school-age children. And the lady's phone was off. She has good neighbors. So one child was in the backyard using one neighbor's Wi-Fi, and the other child was in the gallery using another neighbor's Wi-Fi, and the eldest child was by a grandmother. He was preparing for CXCs, and she wanted to make sure that he had the most secure of the Wi-Fi, but feeling like a failure because she can have all her children under her roof, and she works. So we're not even talking about those who are unemployed, of whom there are many. I promise the Hilton workers that every time I get up and talk, I am going to speak about how a hotel that has government shareholders could not pay the workers the severance because they're setting a bad example for every other employer in the country. We live this experience, and it only has something to do with COVID. But the fact of the matter is, bus fares went up before COVID. Gas prices were all over the place before COVID. Garbage and sewage levy was cutting your tail before COVID. COVID is a convenient excuse for the government to cover its failures. But they have to be held to account. To whom much is given,
much is required,
much is expected, and they have to be called to account. What is going on in Barbados? We have a situation where our people in the hotel industry were dealt a raw deal. I can understand wanting to save the industry. It is an important industry in Barbados. So I get it. I do not understand saving it while sacrificing our people. And the alarm bells were ringing over the amendment to the Severance Payments Act and how it was going to disadvantage the people of Barbados. I put a whole video out. And those who campaign with me, like Beverly, will tell you that every house I knock in and you work at a hotel, you come take your time, do not let it pass. Do not disadvantage yourself. Because it was important that the workers understood what they were in. The hoteliers understood because they asked for it. The hoteliers understood. The workers did not realize how this was going to disadvantage them. But most of all, they didn't realize how the government was going to disadvantage them by not putting the proper legislation in place to make sure that they could get their severance if the establishments did not come up with the money. And so last week, they had to run back to Parliament to fix it. A whole year later, the hotel workers marched since November last year. I know I was there with them the first time. They got promises in relation to December and January, knowing full well that the legislation was not correct. It was not in place. And they still keep a noise. So it can't hush them up. So they know how to run and go and make right things wrong. And I don't know that now is the right time to segue into talking about how many other right things they had to make wrong. Because this is, no, it ain't the other way around. If you have a deputy commissioner of police and you go and put another one, you ain't making right things wrong. So I speak. I speak what I meant. And if you have a Severance Payments Act that already stipulates what is to happen, and you go and fiddle with it and muck it up, you ain't make right things wrong. So don't tell me that I got it backwards. I know I said. I had a good few wrong things that I had to make right too. Anybody can tell me was in possession with a plastic bag today? It was banned, it was pulled back, it was banned, it was pulled back, it was last pulled back in relation to COVID, and we haven't heard a whisper about it since, except that supermarkets are now charging whatever they feel like for a plastic bag. And that is an example. This government has been characterized by making mistakes, unnecessary mistakes. How you could have 30 seats, and I make no apology for counting 30, how you could have 30 seats in the House. For those who don't want me to say 30, how you could have an outright majority in the House and you can't figure out how to get the Constitution amended? How does that happen? How you could, in the face of all the craze, telling you that a piece of legislation is unconstitutional. You cannot change the Constitution by a piece of legislation. A normal piece of legislation, it is not possible. There are things you have to do. I'm not going to tell them, but put me there and do it right here. You cannot tell me that you could not know the Prime Minister is a lawyer, the Attorney General is a lawyer, when the fact is seeing more lawyers. And you can't get legislation passed. You need to go. I am not buying any COVID excuse when there are too many examples outside of COVID of the incompetence of the present administration. It cannot be that you continue to loiter at Parliament. I can't even say going up the steps, because even that we can't figure out. Our Parliament building stands strong, and they meet in a building, a commercial building in Worthing. Can we know how much it costs? One, to repair Parliament. Two, how much longer is it going to take? How much rent you pay where you're at? And what are the terms of the lease? Because at the end of the day, who is paying the bill? It is us. So don't get into anything with anybody without telling you Kadir COVID. I will borrow a phrase from Kerry Simmons. We don't do the Kadir politics book here. That was a speech from when he was over here. How do you do this? How do you have a mindset that your people will be okay with a bag of groceries that was needed, but you haven't put anything in place for any sustainable employment or development? Why are we to be satisfied with a care package? It's a hamper. It just got a cute name, but we know that it serves an immediate need. But in 3 years and 2 throne speeches, we cannot get policy articulated from the present administration before or after COVID. Neither one of the two. COVID is a convenient excuse for this administration. And they don't even get it because one of the biggest faux pas of all is what they have done directly relating to COVID. Lord have mercy. Where they always say they're following the science. Now, I don't know whose science they follow. But how did you not follow the science when you allowed cruise ships to drop anchor and remain on our very fragile coral reefs? And because you tell them do it, you can't get any compensation for it neither. That's me wearing my lawyer hat. They said, come and drop anchor here, so you can't get any compensation for it. How could you follow the science and you don't get that you have to have tight protocols in place? From September last year, back Democratic Labour Party, Dr. Lord, oh boy, he must be hoarse, telling them the protocols are not satisfactory. WHO had guidelines, PAHO had guidelines, CARFA had guidelines, and this administration did what it felt like. And lax protocols is one thing, but when you don't police lax protocols, all hell breaks loose. So don't tell me about no bus crawl when we know that nobody from that bus crawl got on a plane and came here. The COVID was not here. COVID was brought here in every single instance until it was allowed out in our community.
Correct. That's right.
And then fluffing it all the time instead of standing up and saying, look, we made a mistake, we have a problem, we need to fix it. You fluffing the corners. That is not leadership. That is not standing up for your people. That is worse than being a coward. Or we had a word called cravishness. That's when you're grasping at things without a care for the consequence. And the consequences of the actions of leaders hurt people. And we who stand up to serve have to remember all the time that we are fronting for people. We are not fronting for businesses, though they are corporate citizens. We are not fronting for tourists as a block, but we are fronting for people. We are not fronting for a one block. We are fronting for all. And we have to weigh it all up. Don't get me wrong. I have concluded that COVID is here for a while. I don't want to say it to stay.
Yes.
And that means that we have to behave different from how we behaved before. What that also means is that we have to think different from how we thought before. So it is not enough to sit down and hope for the best in education that things will get better, replacing a child with in person with a screen at home, but not utilizing technology as a tool of education, something that we were told about in edutech, and that we have again the opportunity presented by COVID, because that is my other opinion of COVID. It is an opportunity to think and do differently. So we have a moment in time that we should have had from back in the 80s, maybe the early 1990s, to revolutionize our education products. We thank Errol Barrow from the bottom of our heart for laying an education foundation. You may not clap for what I say next, because it is time to move beyond that. It has outlived its usefulness. It is a plan for the 60s and the 70s and maybe the 80s that we have dragged kicking and screaming to the point where it is now comatose in the 21st century, and we need to lay it to rest. It is time to come up with a brand new model of education to face a brand new and different world. And we, the leaders that put ourselves forward, have to have the courage of our convictions and make the necessary changes so that our children are not losing out in a world environment. We have a right, we have a duty to provide to them a world-class education. And they do not get that anymore by doing stiff and stilted subjects, learning by rote and spewing it out. Those days are done. The investigative and inquisitive skills of our children are what are required in this technological age, and that is what we need to foster. That is the direction that our education system needs to be going in. And I hope that those who stand behind me have the courage to do it with me and make the vital change. And it starts now that we shape the minds of our people to think differently.
Right.
We thank you, Janine. It has to be critical thinking. We have to deprogram ourselves in order to, and we're not programming children, you know. We have considered education backwards. Education is not a commodity that we are selling to children. Education is a service that we are providing to children. And if it is not serving them, then we have to change it. It really is as simple as that. We have outlived the Errol Barrow model, and it is time to do something different. And I know I'm gonna hold some licks for that, but that is how I feel about it. But amongst everything else, and recognizing that our people are at the core of everything that we do. I touched on it in relation to St. Lucy, but it has an application to the whole of Barbados. We need to tap into that entrepreneurial spirit. We have young people who have ideas, who want to do. I'm not going to call anybody, but I know a young person who wanted to make furniture and other items out of recycled rubber. Brilliant idea, not 2 pennies to rub together. And it died a natural death because when he tried to sell it to the government of the day, which incidentally is the government of today, They wanted a gift. Tell us how to do this. And that is just one. We have Barbadians overseas who are making a mark, who had to leave these shores in order to make that mark. And that, well, kudos to them. That is one of the travesties that those opportunities are not available here. I am going to get controversial again. We have a healthcare system, and I think about things not in pigeonholes. We have a healthcare system that has served us well. But again, we are recognizing that it's a model that needs to change. However, I am certain that if I can look Barbadians, I will find that Barbadians like having their health system free. In order to deliver that in a meaningful way going forward, we need to do it differently. We need to pull back the QBH to being a public institution. I know that will not be popular, but it has to be done. We need to set up a system where the services provided at our polyclinics are comprehensive enough that our people do not have to spend days and nights and days and nights in accident and emergency, when they have had neither an accident nor an emergency, but there is no other place for them to go to get the investigations that they need. So we have to be thinking about how we do things differently in order to achieve aims that we want. But the most controversial thing I am going to say tonight is going to upset both sides. You see that Cahill project? Think where we would be if we had another revenue stream today. Consider garbage a business. But keep listening to what this present administration is saying and how bit by bit they're bringing the exact project to you in a different skirt. We're not talking about a red dress walking down the road. In a different skirt and a different shirt, but with the appreciation that Barbados's garbage has to have an answer. Collecting garbage helps keep around you tidy, but does nothing when every 18 months or so Mount Stickeroo is spontaneously combusting. First of all, that is a hazard to health. But secondly, did it trigger anybody else besides me how much energy gets wasted every time that happens? And how much energy we could harness if we actually did use it in the way that it could? And that we are not breaking any new ground despite what you were told. There are several countries around the world. Sweden buys other people, other people pay Sweden to take their garbage off their hands. And Sweden turns it into electricity. We don't have to be so myopic and think, oh, we have a whole lot of sun, so we can generate electricity. Where was the sun last month when La Soufrière erupted? Does it not disappear when we have storms passing? Matter of fact, a good rainfall and you got to bathe in cold water or flip that switch. Think about the solutions and this is going to be a strange statement coming from a politician, forget one-upmanship and get on with representing the people of Barbados. Get the job done, but don't look for any kudos from me when I can see that you are not doing what you are supposed to do. How can you offer $300 million to the hotel sector that they didn't even appreciate because they didn't like the conditions attached? But you want to give the creative sector a one-off handout. You want to give the entrepreneurs who can demonstrate their tax readiness a one-off handout. Think about how $300 million in the hands of 300 fledgling businesses could completely transform their ability to develop, to earn, and employ people. You have to see the long game. Politics is not a no issue, though it is made into that every 5 years or whatever cycle, that there's this flurry of activity and then total inertia after that, but want me to pat you on your back. Not virulent the pizza at all. When you're doing right things, I can tell you, thanks for the buses. When you're doing right things, I can tell you, thanks for the garbage truck, but could you please send them?
Yes.
Because I can't figure where they are and the garbage is piling up around Barbados again. Matter of fact, when you're coming for the ash. Don't come into politics looking for the pat on the back. Come to politics to serve. Come to politics to make a difference in the lives of people, whether they thank you or not. That is not the critical issue. So there doesn't need to be any fanfare about it. Though I agree, people have to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how it is going to benefit them. After all, you're serving them. So you should tell them what you are about. But tell me how much you mean to this present administration when on the cusp of a general election, they're now flurrying to dig a hole for a housing development. In 3 years, at a time when it is very obvious that government-driven construction contracts can jumpstart the economy in some way. In 3 years, you take one project and you promise it out, and you take it back and you promise it out again. So we still got to wait and see if you got a third set in the offing to be promised that land as well. That's serious business, you know. I need to take off my lawyer hat tonight, but that is serious business. Just like how fiddling with the bailout will very likely cost this country money, as you have to compensate who got hurt by that. What if somebody paid their deposit? You know what are we really doing? Politics is not a game. It is the lives of people. And until that is cemented in the minds of those who step forward, we will continue like they're doing right now, spinning top in mud, not an idea, because they achieved their aim, and that's to get in. But having got in, the inertia, I'm waiting for them to report tomorrow because they got 26 MPs and I only see 4 to report. I want to know where the rest are and what they're doing for our money. And when we're at it, where is Senator Moore? It's our money. We get to ask and demand the answers. You can't come and have the fight that we are accustomed to saying anyhow and totally vexed with. You can't have them come to report and we can't hear from the rest. I would like to ask them to report, but I can't remember the names. They have made no mark on the political landscape of Barbados.
Not at all.
And they must all be encouraged to forfeit the government pension and leave at the end of this term. They are loitering. And what was the policeman in the house was the expression of move and keep moving? That is where we are at in this country. We have I want to stop talking. Y'all stop giving me nuggets because I really want to get to the question and answer section. I want to interact with you. But I will tell you that in relation to the national events, we will have more to say because at this 3-year junction, they do have to be called to account. All of them, not just the ones that they want to front. So there has to be a moment when they are called to account. But we in the Democratic Labour Party, going forward, intend to return service to politics. It is critical. We have watched all manner of chaos happen in the last 3 years, and it is time that the people of Barbados ask for better. We spent moments internally making changes. Hopefully, you see them and you feel them, and we will continue because you don't necessarily get it right on the first go round. And as we've had to tinker with our bylaws once already, and we may have to tinker again. But what we are trying to create is what you were used to before. It is nothing new. And that is service above self. And that is what I want to bring to St. Lucy. Service above self. And I am satisfied, and I hope you are too, that the time has come to ensure that you are treated with respect in this parish, that you get what you deserve. And I pledge to you my support to ensure that your dreams become a reality and that proper representation returns to St. Lucy as you were accustomed to. This is my pledge. I don't even know why I bother to make notes and then don't look at them. This is my pledge that from Moontown to Cornelltown, from Crab Hill to Josie Hill, those of you familiar with St. Lucy will know that it's north, south, east, and west, and everywhere in between will feel the hand of representation and a difference in their lives. And that you also feel comfortable enough to pull my coattail if necessary, because we are in this together. All in this together. There will be another moment to deal with the Attorney General. No, that is not tonight. That is not tonight. There will be another moment to deal with the Minister of Tourism. That is not tonight. There will be a moment to deal with all of them. Not tonight. Tonight, St. Lucy, try to keep the national to the ones that touch and concern you personally in your hearts, in your homes, and in your families. Because I want you to understand that I get it. And that I am willing to be your voice and to stand up on your behalf and to take the licks and the flack that I know will come so long as you benefit from it. And I do hope that you put your confidence in me so that whenever it is that they decide that elections will call, that I am your next representative for St. Lucy, proudly so, daughter of the soil, happy to be your servant.
Thank you. The next representative of St. Lucy. At this time, I ask Ms. Reyes to come and show Mr. Visa how we in St. Lucy do things. We don't forget our hospitality and our little things at this time, despite all the COVIDs and efforts. Thank you.
Madam President, on behalf of all the members of the St. Lucy branch, we want to show our appreciation for you. We think and we know that you're a courageous person. You're hardworking, helpful, understanding, and full of energy. And we know that when the elections in this country is called, that you would be the one representing St. Lucy, and you will be the one representing us in the House of Assembly. All this, I want to say thank you.
One minute. 1 minute.
Just the president. Thank you.
This is now open the members for questions and comments. You must keep your questions to the point and make your comment succinct and brief to the point, because we want to get around the audience as quickly as possible. I want at this time also to thank Eileen, who is my wife. Glad to see you here. Who is the campaign manager for Ola, representative Mr. Kalman. So actually, in our presence, like we have both campaign managers. Gary, you want to start the ball rolling? Go ahead. You want to say something? Go ahead. Go ahead. Speak.
I am very pleased to represent good friend of mine. not promises. Politics is about people. Politics is about doing things. But the Barbarian Party, that they are 30 and they got 30 some advisors. Advisors that eat